Okay, so now we have this uh, IK foot placement stuff, but actually I have found set of uh, issues. Uh, so the first issue is this thing. When I try to move my character from idle to any direction, the foot sliding happens for that previous route to offset direction, right? This happens because whenever I move my camera, the root bone is not rotated properly. So whenever I try to move to that specific direction, it doesn't know how to resolve that offset. So it is pointed to that specific direction at the start state, and when it comes to the cycle state only, it rotates to that specific direction. That's the first issue. The second issue is uh, this one. So whenever the character rotate from left side, right side to forward, the rotation works properly. But what if the character rotates to left side real quickly and rotate to the forward? Okay? And instead of moving to forward direction, he rotate to the uh, left direction again, right direction again, and move back to the forward. Right? If I show it real quick again, so I'm doing a quick camera movement like this. You can see the rotation happens for uh, incorrect directions. See? For smaller movements, it's fine, right? Since the camera is updating slowly, right? But you can see when I quickly move the camera, that snapping is happen, right? If I do it like this, see, there is a sort of a snap. Right? Okay, so those are the two main bugs that I found, and now we are going to resolve those. So first, let's start with that uh, direction issue, right? Okay, so the issue actually comes at this stage because whenever I moving from start to cycle state, it doesn't rely on the root to offset, right? Because at the anim graph level, I rotate the root bone based on the root to offset value, and it dynamically changes the direction. So that specific start direction doesn't aware of that change, and it's keep playing that start animation for that specific pointed direction, right? So let's first resolve it. Right, so I'll add a new transition from start to cycle. So in case if you haven't seen that transition node appeared at the very first time, simply zoom out and zoom in back again to your locomotion graph, then that node will be appeared again, right? I think it's a bug in the Unreal Engine editor because I'm using 5.3 version. So maybe the latest version like 5.4, 5.5 and much latest versions may have fixed this bug, but if you're using 5.3 version, it will have this issue, right? Okay, so within this transition state, I think I can keep the priority as 1, right? Because we have two transition state that has the priority state 1, which should be fine. So in the second priority 1 based transition state, let's go there, and here we need to get our root to offset. Let's get its absolute value. We don't need to consider its positive, whether it is positive or negative. We just simply need its magnitude. And if we have root to offset greater than maybe like let's say 30, and let's get the property access. Let's get the movement component. We orient rotation to movement. Not, which means if you are not forward facing rotation mode, which means we are at the strafing rotation mode, right? We are at the strafing rotation mode. Plus, if we have a rotor offset that is greater than 30, then instead of relying on the start anim, we are simply jump back to the cycle anim, right? Let's compile and save, play that again. Right, so I'm rotating to that specific direction. Now rotor offset is let's say greater than 30, and if I try to move, now the direction is not forward into that specific direction. Instead of that, it start to play cycle animation real quick, right? But if I don't have a rotor offset, then it will play the start anim, then go to the cycle state. Okay, right. Similarly, I think we need to add the transition rule for start to idle. But let me first quickly check my documentation. Yeah. So I'll copy these three, go to the locomotion, and let's add a new transition rule from stop to idle. Yeah, this one. I'll keep the priority order as 1. That would be fine. But as the transition rules, I'll copy these 3 pins. And maybe instead of 30, I will add 50. So let's say in case at the stop state, if we have a rotor offset, then instead of keep playing the stop animation, it will simply go to the idle state, right? So if I play it back now, I can see if I stop my movement with some rotor offset, instead of playing the stop animation, it will play the idle state, right? For example, let's see if I move like this and stop, then the stop animation plays and go to the idle. But let's say if I move like this, and just before starting I had some sort of a camera movement, and instead of playing the stop anim, now it plays the idle anim and do that turn in place rotation, right? Okay, now those issues has been resolved. Okay, then the next big issue we have is whenever we move our camera real quick, the rotation is not quite accurate. See, the turn in place is snapping in between left and right. You see, so the fix for this is quite simple, but at the debugging process it was really difficult to me to find out what was the exact issue. But after a few hours of struggle, I found where was the issue. So if you go to the anim graph and locomotion state machine node, you will see here we have max transitions per frame as 3, which means like for a given frame that we are rendering, we can do maximum possible 3 transitions at our state machine, right? So what will happen is that since the new design of the Unreal Engine workflow uses this multi-threaded animation reinitializations, it will try to use maximum 3 different threads for a specific what do you call not the maximum, minimum 3 threads for a specific transition logic to be rendered, right? So what will happen is that like when these frames are generating, it will execute this function blueprint thread safe update animation function, and it will somehow manipulate the root offset 3 for incorrect values, right? Um, so it was really difficult to debug because at the Unreal Engine editor level, we don't have the capabilities to debug the thread level communications. So all I can do was simply toggle these values and see what happens, right? So at the implementation level, maybe there is a way to debug this stuff, but at the editor level, at this visual scripting level, it is extremely hard to debug these sort of issues. But anyway, somehow I found the fix. So all you have to do is, if you're using this locomotion state machine, and make sure the max transitions per frame is set as 1, right? That's the first thing. And go inside that state machine, and inside idle as well, we have a state machine called idle sm, and there also make max transitions per frame as 1. Simply compile and save and play it again. Now you will see for the quick camera movement, that turning place snapping is not happening anymore, right? Which means the issue has been fixed, right? Okay, now we have nice looking turn in place plus the movements. Okay, actually you can tweak these values later on if required. For example, like let's say at the start to cycle jump, I added this root offset threshold as 30. Maybe you can reduce it, maybe you can increase it. So based on the animations that you have, you can tweak these values later on, right? But for now, I just keep things like this. Okay. So those are the bugs that I found. Plus, we can make some improvements, and small typo errors were there. We can fix those stuff real quick. So the first typo error that I've seen was at the data table anim set data table. If you go to a specific turn in place field, here the play rate has been mistakenly typed as flat rate, right? So it's a typo error. So let's quickly fix that thing. But since this is a change for our data table, make sure to export it to a JSON. Otherwise, in case if our data table has been corrupted, entire data will be lost at the data table level, right? So I take a JSON dump out of this data table, and let's go to the data structures, movements, and here we have sanim turn in place, right? So let's rename this as play rate and save, and then let's recompile resave this as any movement. So we are good to go. In as any movement group, then general no changes, but at this anim set level there is a change. Let's save it. Finally, let's save the data table, and then let's compile the locomotion component. Okay, right, now you can see that typo issue has been fixed at the turn in place, right? Okay, right, then yeah, one other thing that I can do is so currently we have this disable root tier offset variable at here, right? Right. So currently if I toggle manually this one as maybe true, yeah, there are some compilation issues. Yeah. So since I changed that record, actually this has some sort of a reference issue. So let's go there. Yeah, so let's attach it to here, compile back, see. Okay, so I'll enable this, make it as true, this disable root to offset, and play it again. And you see now, if I'm trying to rotate, the turn in place animation is not playing, right? So I think this is a configurable value that we can push to our data table anim set level, right? So I'll go to the sanim turn in place, and here we have play rate, right? Yeah, I can push this thing. Yeah, I think we have this sanim config, right? There we have sort of configurations for the acceleration, speed, velocities, rotations, and IK. So maybe here I can add that configuration, right? So I'll add a new variable, right? I'll name it as what? Disable root to offset. Or maybe I can simply tell it as disable turn in place, right? Let's say disable turn in place. Maybe move it to here. Save it. Let's save this one and this one. At the general level also, I think this one need to be saved first. Yeah. And then what? Then at the SNM general, and finally SNM set, then data table, then component configuration. Okay, now if we look at a record, maybe let's say jog, and inside the config we have this disable turn in place, right? So maybe we can use this to manipulate that specific disable root to offset variable, right? So let's go to the thread save function, set animation data. Inside config, now we have this disable turn in place. So I'll get this variable to here and simply plug it to here. Okay. Maybe the naming convention you can improve if required, but I will keep this as it is, right? So this variable is named as disable turn in place. This one is named as disable root to offset, because it is much more meaningful to keep disable root to offset as its name within this locomotion graph. What do you call this? Anim instance, because it has a meaning there, right? Because it's based on the root to offset calibration. But this one is like more like a feature wise generalization for developers. For the developers at this data table level, they don't need to actually aware of whether it is root to offset manipulations or some other variable manipulations. At the data table level, they need to be aware of the feature wise enablement of the these sort of features, right? That's why I named it as disable turn in place. Okay, now by default it is false, which means like if I try to rotate, the turn in place happen. But let's say at the data table level, I make let's say the jog movement, I make the turn in place as false. If I try to rotate, now it won't rotate anymore, right? Okay, but I'll keep this as false because I think it's nice to have the turn in place rotations when we are strafing. Okay, so that's the improvement that we can do. Plus, I think we can organize the code base little bit. So at our ABP locomotion anim instance, I have seen some of the functions outside of the respected categories. For example, this one. This one is actually a turn in place related function, so I will move it to the turn in place. And this one, update wall detection heuristic, is actually a thread safe update animation related function, so I'll move it to blueprint thread safe functions. Right, so now our animation blueprint is pretty much organized. Okay, so those are some of the bug fixes that I wanted to mention and fix, plus some of the improvements that I need to add here, right? And yeah, so those are the stuff that I want to discuss within this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.